Washington, D.C. is in complete and total disarray right now. Full retreat, completely confused and flummoxed as to why their attempts at regime change have failed so badly. I have characterized this issue as the greatest geopolitical miscalculation in the history of our country, and I think it's going to end up being that. The culture of South America is very, very different than that of what we would believe about Latin America in the United States. It is an entirely different place. Countries like, for example, Chile have, for the vast majority of their history, been what we would describe as socialist or social democracies, and they have been doing just fine. The reason we have seen the issues in Venezuela, and I'm sure many of you are aware of it, has to do with U.S. interference. In today's video, I'm going to speak about another time of U.S. interference that has now brought itself into the forefront of today's issue. Yesterday's video talked about Michelle Bachelet, the High Commissioner on Human Rights, accepting cordially the invitation of President Nicolas Maduro, not having anything to do with random guy named Juan. She's going to visit this weekend. She has a very special place in her heart for U.S. installed puppets. This individual, Augusto Pinochet, D.C. installed dictator in Chile back in 1973, jailed, tortured, and killed her father. He was one of the most vile individuals to ever lead a nation ever. And there have been some bad ones. She is a member of the Socialist Party, and I'm sure a lot of my audience who takes their marching orders from Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and all the neocons already have their mind already made up about what socialist/social democracy is. And that attitude is what has led to the complete and total failure of this effort in Venezuela. People can't wrap their minds around why Venezuela would fly F-16s, because they used to be our ally, and we used to have people in charge that understood. I wanted to bring up this picture because this is Miss Bachelet when she was much younger next to her father, so that people could have a face. Jailed, tortured, and killed. What was his evil, terrible, horrible crime? He was the minister in charge of food distribution under Salvador Allende, the actual leader of Chile that Washington, D.C. deposed with a military coup. So understand, there are real costs. But while we have been debating this here in social media, the people of Venezuela on the ground have not had the luxury. And amazingly, left to their own devices, they got together, like the evil, terrible, horrible socialists they are, and found ways to feed themselves. And they found ways to recover irrespective of Caracas, irrespective of Miraflores Palace, which is what my hope and prayer is for our country someday. That we stop thinking of all the solutions as emanating from a ballot box or emanating from some tiny little pseudo-dictatorship on the East Coast called Washington, D.C. We could figure it out for ourselves. There are no boogeymen that Washington, D.C. is protecting us from. Washington, D.C. has enemies, but if they would go away, so would our enemies. I'd like to read this for you so that you can see what's actually happening, or hear what's actually happening on the ground in Venezuela. On Friday, February 22, the local production and distribution committees of Santa Teresa Parish in central West Caracas held a supplementary food market in which 3,000 local residents had the opportunity to purchase a kilo of meat, a whole chicken, 3 packs of corn flour, pasta, canned sardines, toothpaste, and sanitary wipes, all for around $3. Eggs, fresh vegetables were also sold at affordable prices. This market was meant to complement the monthly distribution of subsidized food boxes, which are comprised of around 18 kilos of rice, lentils, beans, pasta, cooking oil, and among other products, all for about 15 US cents. Did you catch the list of everything there? And how affordable it was? Boy, socialism is evil. Golly, think of that. The ability to buy groceries at affordable prices in large amounts. This is the crime. This is the evil, terrible, horrible dictatorship that Washington, D.C. needs to attack and needs to get rid of. It's what they're really afraid of, to be very honest, and this is me editorializing here a little bit. What they are afraid of, Washington, D.C., is the people of our country realizing we can do it for ourselves without them. China isn't going to send some huge invading army to take over Kansas or Missouri or Arkansas if Washington, D.C. would ever collapse. We could figure it out as 50 independent nations. We could have 50 brand new individuals sent to the UN with 50 independent ideas. The people of Texas would no longer really even have to care about what the opinion of the people of California was. They could coexist, and it would have nothing to do with each other, so that we wouldn't be at each other's throats over every little difference. That's what DC needs, that continual aggravation. And there are other countries that have been investing in Venezuela for this very reason. I wanted to read this just so you know how serious some other countries are taking it. In this U.S. onslaught, Venezuela has important allies, without diminishing importance to the friendship that maintains with nations of the American continent. President Maduro has in Russia and China 2 great backers. Russian ambassador to Caracas, Vladimir Zemsky, said that this week, Russia will respond forcefully to any attempt to deprive Russian companies of their investment in Venezuela. Once again, the reason Venezuela flies F-16s, they used to be our ally. They wanted to be our ally, but we moved away from them, not the other way around. Now, one of the things that the side effects of this issue in Venezuela has been that there are businesses and banks that are clamoring to get into Venezuela because it's a great place to invest in. And very recently, Special Envoy to Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, has come out and ramped up the sanctions on the oh gosh darn it. I got the wrong picture up. Hold on, let me see if I can find the one of Elliot Abrams. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Yeah, sorry. It's just get a lot of stuff going and sometimes the wrong picture pops up. Yeah, Trump's Venezuela envoy vows sanctions on banks supporting Maduro. So much for this idea of, oh, the sanctions are only on people. Wrong. They're not just on people. Washington, D.C. is terrified of actual, some level of free market capitalism moving into Venezuela now because they've failed. It's why they gave the huge exception to Steve Mnuchin and his hunger bonds. Now, at the end of this video, I would like to actually play a video for you guys that will speak volumes to how terrified Washington, D.C. is and how completely out of sorts they are. Some of you may have seen this, some of you might have not. It is spokesperson Palladino, I don't know the man's first name, talking about, or at least castigating maybe is a better word, the media for not reporting on the story in Venezuela correctly. I'm going to go ahead and play this and let you listen to it.
Neither is correct. A few basic facts. We have noticed in news coverage that some outlets are incorrectly referring to Juan Guaido as the opposition leader or the self-proclaimed president. Neither is correct. A few basic facts. The National Assembly remains the only legitimate and democratically elected institution in Venezuela. Juan Guaido was elected president of the National Assembly on January 5th, 2019. And on January 10th, Maduro usurped the presidency. Therefore, the president of the National Assembly, and relying on Venezuela's constitution, as president of the National Assembly and relying on Venezuela's constitution, Juan Guaido became interim president of Venezuela on January 23rd. Millions of Americans and more than 50 countries recognize Juan Guaido as interim president of Venezuela. He is appointed and credentialed ambassadors to international organizations in the United States and numerous other democratic nations and other democratic nations. So to refer to Juan Guaido as anything but interim president falls into the narrative of a dictator who has usurped the position of the presidency and led Venezuela into the humanitarian, political, and economic crisis that exists today. The international community must unite behind interim President Juan Guaido and the Venezuelan National Assembly and support the peaceful restoration of democracy in Venezuela. That's it for the top. Let me get this.
Okay, I'm sorry. Before the response comes, this never gets old. It's just hilarious. This individual, Palladino, that he looks like he's in physical pain. Literally, the man knows every word out of his mouth is a lie. I don't envy him. I would have never taken the job, but, you know, this is, when you're the guy at point, this is what you get. But it doesn't get old. It's just hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. He can't literally even force the words out of his mouth. And when the first question comes, the look on his face is like, oh God, this is going to get even worse. So we'll let this play forward another minute.
You're complaining because news outlets are calling him by a title that you don't think that he...
Not a complaint, pointing out, just trying to correct.
Well, it sounds like a complaint to me, and that seems pretty weak sauce. I don't understand what your problem is. I mean,
he's the interim president, and we don't want to...
You consider him to be the interim president, and as you say, 50 other countries outside of recognize him as the interim president. But there are more than 190 members of the United Nations, so your 50 countries is not even close to half of that.
We are supporting the Constitution of Venezuela and the people of Venezuela. We're supporting the Venezuelan people here, and so the United States, it's the time to act in support of democracy. And
the news coverage of calling him the legitimate leader, the president, is going to encourage more countries to recognize.
We don't want to feed into the rhetoric of the current dictator.
Okay, I'm sorry. It is so difficult to watch. But Robert Palladino, by the way, is the man's name. Sorry about not having that ahead of time. But this shows you that little 3-minute clip is completely demonstrative of where DC is right now. Completely on their heels, confused, and not even believing their own rhetoric anymore. Because everybody has seen it now. Everybody has the information now. The military in Venezuela, honestly, might be the most loyal, decent military that might have ever walked the face of the earth, given the amount of pressure they were under by one of the most powerful dictatorial regimes in DC that has ever existed. And I guess I will leave it there, but understand that this woman just changed everything. Like, share, subscribe.